Maybe if you imagine a life at some point in the future, some way that you want to live, do you know how you're going to get there? Do you know what it's going to take to accomplish the goals, to achieve the vision? I do. When I was a young professional, there were people that came into my life that showed me how to get there. They had been there and they were showing me the way. That's what this is all about. That's what this coursework is all about. Everything that I've learned in 25 years, I'm giving to you in 6 modules. My hope is that you realize your dreams, and I've got the framework and the way to get you there. Hello, I'm Nick Anderson. Thank you for purchasing this course. By doing so, what you've demonstrated is that you are committed to growth and that you want to become the best leader that you possibly can. Now, I started my career in corporate America when I was 17 years old. I got a part-time job as a teller in a bank, and I grew in that career. I ascended to leadership roles very quickly. In fact, when I was 19 years old, I was an assistant manager of a bank branch, and that's when I was first introduced to the idea of leadership in a corporate setting. For the next 2.5 decades, I studied leadership, I paid attention to those who were really successful, and I worked on myself. And so this course is the culmination of those 2.5 decades of learning, all the wins and the losses. What I'd like to do is share this with you as you're embarking on your journey to become the best leader that you possibly can. So the journey begins with identifying who you are. What do you value? Then leaning into those things that you want to master. And we're gonna cover topics like agreements and accountability and presence, how you show up in the world. So as we wrap up this course, we'll be focused on vision, mission, and purpose. Perhaps the most important module of all 6. What is it that you imagine for your future? What is your purpose and your mission? How will you accomplish these things? Before we get into the course material, into the modules, I think it's important that you know who it is that's giving you this information. So I'm gonna give you my story. And maybe you've seen some of it if you follow me on social media, but if you're meeting me for the first time, let me tell you about myself. If I go way back in time to when I was 4 years old, my father was both mentally ill and chemically dependent, and my mom asked him to leave. And that was the first time that I really experienced abandonment issues. And this is gonna show up later in life, and that's why that's important. For 6 years, Dad was a weekend dad, but when I was 10 years old, he chose to end his life in suicide. And as much as this is a personal story, you might ask, well, why are you telling me this, Nick? What does this have to do with the leadership course that I just bought? It was at that time in my life, I played youth sports, I was on a soccer team, and my coach gave me a leadership award. In an era of participation trophies and everybody gets a ribbon for showing up, this was a unique award. I didn't really understand. Why did my coach choose me? I didn't think I deserved it. This too is gonna show up later in the course material. So I go on living life, living what I call a normal American life. I did pretty well in school, but towards the end of my high school experience, I really wanted to get in the workforce. I was really driven to be an independent young man. I wanted to move out on my own and pay my own bills, and I wanted to graduate high school early. But my high school counselor didn't see it the same way I did, so as any 17-year-old that knows everything about the world might do, I gave him an ultimatum. Said, you can let me do this my way, or you can watch me be a statistic. I didn't win that argument, so I walked off my high school campus early and without a diploma, but I had a big chip on my shoulder. I wanted to prove to the world that I could do things my way. This notion of doing things my way is also going to show up in some of the course material. It's going to tie into having a vision and having a purpose and having a mission. We'll get more into that later. So right in the beginning of my career, I was 17 years old when I started as a part-time teller. At 18 years old, I was promoted into a personal banker role, opening new accounts and selling mortgages. At 19, I was asked to become the assistant manager of the branch I was working in. I was also invited into a leadership group by one of the senior executives in the bank. I mean, imagine me at 18 years old thinking, I want to be like that. I want to be in a position where I can give back and help someone like the younger me grow. And so I was invited into this leadership study group. We had a book, we read the book, we met regularly, and that's what started my journey of growth through leadership. Most of the people that I was leading were more than twice my age. And my boss at the time said, Nick, everybody on the team likes you, but they're afraid that this is going to go to your head. And she was right. It did. You see, I wanted to be a leader. I wanted it bad, and I wanted it for all of the wrong reasons. I wanted the title, I wanted the money, I wanted the attention. That hurt little boy whose father abandoned him wanted people to love him. But it was right at that point in my career that I was introduced to this notion, this study of leadership. So at 18 years old, I became a student of leadership. And for the next 25 years, that study continued. And I observed and I watched and I copied, I emulated, I tweaked, I improved, and I developed my own philosophies on leadership. If we fast forward from the age of 18 to my early 20s, I fell in love, got married, started a family, and life was good. Life was really good. We were living the American dream. We had the house, the cars, the kids, the vacations. So while the career was taking off and we had all the things that made our life look really good from the outside, there was still some work that I needed to do on the inside. And I was aware of that. I was committed to it, I just hadn't started yet. Now, right about this time in my life and my career, something I could never have imagined occurred. I lost my wife in a very tragic and sudden accident. There was an identity that I had. In fact, when I would introduce myself publicly, I was a fairly public face for the companies that I worked for, and I would present on stage at the podium, even did a few television interviews. And I would introduce myself this way. I'd say, "Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I happen to be a banker too." You see, that was my identity. And in an instant, that all changed. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what to do. And so it was after this tragedy that things became crystal clear to me. I need to stay alive. My purpose in life is to stay alive for my children. My boys were 9 and 5 at the time. And even though there were lots of people in their life, on some level, I was the only one left. And so I embarked on yet another journey of growth. In some ways, it was a journey of shrinking instead of growing. I knew I needed to be healthy. And so that 305-pound man, he had to change. The journey of growth is not one that is linear, and it is not one that ever ends. If you're committed to growth, you're committed to growth for a lifetime. Who I am today is not the man I was, and I like who I am today. And who I am today is not the man that I will be, and I think I'm gonna like him too. You're in this coursework because you want to be someone whom you aspire to. You see, it was Matthew McConaughey that shared this idea of who is it that you want to impress? Who's your idol? Who do you look up to? And McConaughey said,
me in 10 years.
Because he was always going to be looking forward to something in the future. So if I go back to that 10-year-old boy that won the leadership award after his father was gone, his friends all said, "Nick, I don't know how you do it." And that 10-year-old boy would say, "I just don't see any other way." That 10-year-old boy had a vision of a future that was different than the life he was living then. The man who lost his wife, the people around him said, "I don't know how you're holding it together." And that same man said the same thing. "I don't see any other way." At that time in my career, I had just about reached the mountaintop, so to speak, and I was ready to walk away. I actually told my employer, "Lay me off, give me a package." And they said, "No, we can't do that. You're too important to us." So as my story continues, a man came into my life named Bill Robinson. Bill was a mentor, and he would say that leadership is a choice. And I thought I understood what he meant. I thought that it was my choice as someone who wanted to lead. But the truth is that leadership is not the choice of the leader. Leadership only exists, only occurs in that moment when one person chooses to follow another. One of the great minds in leadership, a man named John Maxwell, would say that if you think you're leading but no one is following, well, you're just taking a walk. So my story concludes at the 25-year mark of my career. I've experienced the success. I've had the jobs, I've made the money, I've done the things. This isn't about me. This is about you. Your journey of leadership may just be starting. Maybe you are the younger version of me, or maybe you are at some point in your career where you just want to go to that next level. I've been to the top of the mountain. What's your mountaintop? What's your story? Let's write that together.